Next week, Wednesday, really important to go to shul, to be there when God gives the Ten Commandments since 3,336 years ago, when we first got the Torah. Every year, Hashem re-gives us, rededicates to us the Torah from a deeper level, from a more inner level. Each year, a little more Him. And it's like He's giving it to us through the Kriya, through the Aseret HaDibros. So when He's giving it to us, He wants us to be there to receive it. A lot of people misunderstand Shavuos. It seems like such a small holiday, so short, so easy. I mean, we're not turning over our house for like a month before. Just have to make a few cheesecakes. We could go to the store and buy them, you know? We're not building a sukkah in our backyard. We don't have to get a lulav and esrog and put it together. It's like literally the easiest of all the holidays. It's far less stressful than a Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. Like it's not even a Hanukkah or a Purim. According to the Zohar, Shavuos is the most significant holiday. Not the smallest, shortest, easiest, least significant. The most significant because Shavuos is the source of everything, including every other holiday. Why do we keep Pesach? Why do we keep Sukkot? Why do we have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Because of what we were told in the Torah. So where does that come from? That comes from Shavuos. Shavuos is when we became Hashem's people. He became our God. We got the Torah. There's a relationship, and therefore we have a Pesach, and therefore we have a Sukkot, and therefore we have a Hanukkah and a Purim and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Everything else, Shabbos, it all stems from Shavuos. That's actually the reason why Shavuos is in the middle. It might sound funny to you, but we have Pesach and Shavuos and Sukkot. So it's in the middle. Between Pesach and Sukkot, in the middle, we have Shavuos, because it's the central beam. It's a central pillar supporting the entire structure. That's actually the reason why biblically Shavuos is one day. You know, according to the Torah, Pesach is 7 days and Sukkot is 8. And we have, of course, Pesach is 8 and Sukkot is 9. According to the Torah, Shavuos is 1 day. That's why we have 2. To express one, to express the oneness of the Jewish people through the Torah. We are one. We are unique. We are separate. We are different than the entire world. Mi ka'am Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. Who is like your nation, the Jewish people, goy echad ba'aretz, a nation, a people who's one, who's separate, who's distinct, who's separate from everything else in the world. We're echad. God is one, the Torah is one, and we are one. And that's why Shavuos is 1 day. Of course, we know that it's 1 day. Well, of course, by us it's 2, but also Shavuos has a connection to the number 3, because we're told it all has to do with threes, right? It's a Torah of 3, given to a people of 3, in the month of 3, given by Moshe, who's a 3rd child. You know, like, it goes on and on. I think, I don't remember who, maybe Reb Sajigon or Reb Haigon lists so many 3s connecting to Shavuos, connecting to Matan Torah. So on one hand, it's all about 1, and that's why it's 1 day. But on the other hand, it's also all about 3, as there's many, many 3 connections to Shavuos. And I'm saying, most basic one. It's in the 3rd month, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. That's the month of Torah. And you'd say, wait, why is it all about ones? We're just saying it's about 1. It's about the oneness of God, the oneness of the Jewish people, the oneness of Torah. So how do we suddenly jump from 1 to 3? So the answer is, it is all about 1. It's about Achdus, one, unity, oneness of God, oneness of the Jews, oneness of Torah. But real Achdus, real unity, and there's a great thought from Aaron. Real unity is not when there's only 1. It's when there's more than 1 and there's still Achdus. Meaning, if you're in a place of only 1, nothing else, so what's Achdus? Like I'm saying, if you think of the concept of marriage, well, if you're single, you can always think you're going to be the greatest wife and greatest mother. Like, there's obviously, there's no challenge, so it's all very perfect in your brain. If we're in a place of only oneness, of only God, nothing else, you know, you're in heaven, you're above, and all you feel is the reality of God, that doesn't prove much. There's no challenge there. So who knows? Who knows what you'd be really like if there was a challenge? So we start off as 1. God, oneness, all there is Hashem, above, all there is Hashem, all there is Hashem, all there is Hashem, beautiful. Let's see what's real. Come down to this world. This is a world of multiplicity. This is our world. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's not a 1. It's like 2, many, many, many 2s. So when you're in this world of lots of things that seemingly are not Hashem, that seemingly are separate from Hashem, that seemingly are in contradiction to Hashem, and still in this world of so many things, you know it's all 1. You know, it's all the oneness of God. That's what's shining through this world of multiplicity. That's real Achdus Hashem. Then it's really one. Then we know the one is for real, because you still sense the one even when there's a lot of twos, other things going on. So we could sort of connect this to the months. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. Nisan is one, the first month, right? It's the month we left Egypt. When you're in the state of one, it's like one, like God, one. Huge revelation of God. But no real relationship to this world. No transformation. And that's why the people ran out of Egypt. It's very interesting because the verse says, Ki barach ha'am, the nation fled from Egypt. And the question is, who are they running from? Paro, Pharaoh, the people, the Egyptians, they all said, go, 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 good riddance. Let's give you more of our stuff. Gold, silver, clothing, just get out of here. So who are they running from? So it's very interesting. And Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says they're running from themselves. They're running from the evil of Egypt that had become internalized inside of them because they couldn't handle it. Because even though it's Nisan, it's one, God is shining tremendously. But that God shining had nothing to do with the physical reality. So if you want to be clinging to that God, you have to run. You have to leave the physical reality because you can't handle it. You can't handle the evil. You have no way of connecting all that God to all the evil around you. So that's why they ran. They were in essence running from themselves. Sometimes the only thing we can do is run from ourselves. Is that a healthy tool? Sometimes it's survival. So in Nisan, in the first month, is all about one. Huge revelation of God, but doesn't deal with the physical at all. No connection. The second month is Iyar. Iyar is like this world reality. That's why we count Sphira every single day of Iyar. We count it some days of Nisan, some days of Sivan, and every single day of Iyar. That's Sphira is a process of self-refinement, which means there's a lot of multiplicity around, there's a lot of stuff around, and deal with it, and refine it, and make it shine with a godly light. So in Nisan, number one, it's like God. In Iyar, number two, it's like stuff. Lots of stuff that seem very separate from God, and we are dealing with it. But still, it's separate from God. It's an existence. It's not yet revealed as godliness. And that's why Iyar actually stands for, as we're talking in Iyar, we're on the 28th, by now the 29th of Iyar, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Rachel. That's what Iyar stands for. Aleph, Yud, Yud, Resh, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Rachel, who are the four legs of God's chariot. Chariot means totally nullified to God. So Iyar is like nullification to God. Taking the stuff of this world and refining it and being nullified to God, but it's not yet. It's like doing a mitzvah. Mitzvah is totally nullified to God. That's not yet number three. What's number three? Three is the month of Sivan. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. The month of Matan Torah. We got the Torah. What's Torah? Torah is, we have one thing going on in Nisan, above God stuff. We have one thing going on in Iyar, below, physical stuff. Take the one, take the two, and put it together. Make something new. Make a new thing. And number three, higher than both. Because the fusion of God integrated with this world, like the Jew and Hashem, absolutely one. Because that is the power of Torah. Through Torah, it's not just nullified to God, which is amazing. It's fusion with God. It's intimacy with God. It's oneness with God. And that's what number three signifies. Your mind and Hashem's mind, so to speak, becoming one. A one, and we get a three. A new existence, a complete fusion. So one was Nisan, above, God. Two, Iyar, below, world. Three, Sivan, the fusion of the two. Take the God energy, take the world energy, and create something new. A fusion of the two, perfect integration. Dina, what's your question or comment?
Just quick question. Is that why, I think you were saying last week that the Rebbe says that Rosh Chodesh, Sivan is the time to like beseech Hashem for, it's like I think you said it was a time to make requests.
I don't remember saying that. I think I spoke about last week, actually I told you privately afterwards, was that Shabbos Mevarchim Sivan.
Yes.
The Shabbos of your Kiddush and Sudas Hafdah is when the Rebbe requested that it should be a Shabbos dedicated to Achdus. Because it's a Shabbos that blesses the first day of Sivan, which is when the Jews came to Sinai, to the Midbar, to the desert of Sinai, and we're told then that they were all united. It was the only time in our history. We never had it before, and we've actually never had it since. And he, singular, the Jewish people, camped there by the foot of the mountain. How could you say singular about 3 million people? Our sages say the famous words we all know. Ki'ish echad b'lev echad. We're like one man with one heart, all absolutely united with one desire and goal, to become God's people, for him to be our God, to receive the Torah. And that was the unity. And speaking of requests, I wasn't going to mention this, but since you said it, I was in my brain, it was sort of a lot of different things. I mean, it's a special time, a lot going on. So tomorrow is actually a very special day to make requests for your children. It's a very, very, very special day. There's a special prayer composed by the Shlah HaKadosh, of which most Horowitzes or Gorwitzes are descended from the Shlah. Very, very great Kabbalist, who said it's the day we daven for our children because, again, or in a different way, but similarly, we're about to have, this is the eve of Rosh Chodesh, and always the day before Rosh Chodesh is called Yom Kippur Katan. And here, especially because, in a sense, Shavuos is all about children, because they were the guarantors, right? God said, I need a guarantor. All right, the Avos, the Nevi'im, the Talmidei Chachamim, our children. Yeah, children are great guarantors. Children will guarantee that the Torah will continue. So that's why the holiday, and therefore the month, and therefore the energy has to do with children. And that's why for anyone who this is relevant to hear, it's a very special day. You do or do not have to say the Tefillah of the Shalah. It's if you want it, I'm sure somebody on your WhatsApp group will be, I'm sure someone will post it on our WhatsApp group tomorrow. You know, it always goes flying on the WhatsApp groups, but you could be prepared. I'm telling you already tonight. But you don't have to say the tefillah. You could just daven. It's a good day to give extra tzedakah for your children and to daven for your children. Very seriously. You could say the tefillah shalah. You do not have to. If it's not your minhag, not have to at all say the tefillah, but it's a very, very special day to daven for children, which was not at all what I was going to talk about. But since Dina said requesting, it was like,
Sorry.
oh yeah, no, because I was thinking, should I mention it? And I'm like, okay, she said it. That must be a sign. I'll mention it.
Not to continue this for longer than you intended, but what about someone like me who does not have children yet?
That's a great question. Maybe for you, what I would say, inspired by today's chita, is daven for your students.
Okay, I like that.
That's today, in today's Torah portion, it says, these are the children of Moshe and Aaron. And then only lists the children of Aaron. And Rashi says, what's going on? Where are Moshe's children? And Rashi says, when you teach your students Torah, it's as if you gave birth to them. So our students are, in a sense, our children. It was
Beautiful.
It affected me very much in the Hashgacha project. I happened to see last night, totally not realizing, I sort of stumbled across this beautiful little video on the Rebbe's respect, the Lavav Rebbe's respect for his teacher. Meaning from when the Rebbe was age 7 to 11 and a half, he had a private teacher. When he was 11 and a half, this teacher said to the Rebbe's father, I can't anymore. Like, he's past me. I can't teach him anymore. And from then on, the Rebbe just learned himself under the guidance of his father, who was a great Kabbalist and tzaddik. But this rabbi, obviously a great person, his name was Rabbi Valenkin. He eventually got out of Russia and came to America and came to Crown Heights. And it was just so special, which Hashgacha Pratis I happened to watch last night and then see the Rashi today. And I was thinking that this is something all students, should see how you're supposed to respect your teachers. How, like, whenever he would come into the February, it's the Hasidic gathering of thousands of people, the Rebbe would like get up, not completely stand, because then everybody would stand and be really embarrassing, but the Rebbe would still like get up. And whenever he would leave, the Rebbe would like get up until he finished. When he came for a private audience with the Rebbe said, sit down. He said, I'm not sitting. I'm not going to sit in front of a Rebbe. He wasn't sitting there. He wasn't sitting either. And both of them stood for 40 minutes because neither one was going to sit down in front of the other. Whatever, many, 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 many examples. And he got sick and the Rebbe sent a private nurse to be by him 24/7. And the Rebbe sent like the best doctor that the hospital couldn't believe such an important doctor came to their hospital to see this patient. And the Rebbe paid for his funeral and paid part of his matzeva. It was just so moving to me. Just so moving to me. Like what an example.
It sounds like how you would treat a parent. Like,
right. And then I was learning today in the Chumash, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a relationship, teacher to student. This is how we revere, and yeah, this is how we revere our teachers. It was really beautiful. Anyway, so yeah, those are the people you should daven for tomorrow. Getting back to what I was supposedly talking about, whatever we're talking about is obviously what I'm supposed to be talking about. I want to talk about Torah. Because Torah, we're saying, is this vehicle for taking this world of multiplicity and revealing it's a world of achdus. It's a world of oneness. As I said, we got the Torah 3,336 years ago. And every year on Shavuos, we get it again, higher level, on a deeper level. As I said, it's really important to be in shul to get the Torah. It's really important to bring your children, as we're talking. They're the special ones. They're the guarantors. I saw recently that the Midrash says that both Torah and the soul of the Jew, is compared to a candle, right? Famous psukim, we know, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, we know all these psukim that say this. So the Midrash says we have Torah that's compared to the candle, Kiner Mitzvah Torah Ar. We have the Jew, the soul that's compared to the candle, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. God says, you guard my candle, I will guard yours. Hashem is saying, you guard my candle, the Torah, guard it, keep it, learn it, live it, and I'll guard yours. I'll guard you, soul and body, your candle. The Lubavitcher Rebbe discusses this, and he goes into a lot of detail that I'm not going to go into now, but I'm just bringing the point that struck me so deeply. The Rebbe says it's much more than guarding. It's not only if we keep the Torah keeps us, which is wonderful, and we appreciate that. It's really existence. Torah is the existence of the Jew, and the Jew is the existence of Torah. We're interdependent, interwoven. It's not only to be guarded and protected. It's to live, it's to be, meaning there's no existence for Torah without Jews. If Torah didn't have the Jewish people, what would Torah be? It wouldn't have life, it wouldn't have feet, it wouldn't have existence, it wouldn't be. If there were no Jews, there wouldn't be a Torah. And conversely, it's also true about us. If we're Jewish people and we don't have a Torah, we're nothing. Without Torah, we're nothing. There's no point. What does it mean we're a Jew? If you're a Jew without Torah, you're not a Jew. If there's Torah without Jews, there's no Torah. So the existence of Torah is dependent on the Jews. And the existence of Jews is dependent on Torah, because without Torah, we've got nothing. We're nothing. It was very interesting. It actually reminded me of a vignette that I thought was fascinating. This was in probably the late 60s, when, the world was all into like the space race and who's going to find extraterrestrial life first. Of course, nobody's ever found any, but whatever. Is there life on outer space? It was a hot topic. So somebody was at a private audience with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, it was in Yechidus, and he asked the Rebbe, do you believe there's life on outer space? Will we find life in outer space? And the Rebbe gave an answer that I think is so fascinating. The Rebbe said, there might be life. Like, I don't know. There might be life, but there is definitely not intelligent life. Why? How did the Rebbe know this? The Rebbe said, because life cannot be without Torah. If there's intelligent life and no Torah, there's no point to that life. And our Torah wouldn't work on any other planet. Our Torah has conformed itself to the parameters of planet Earth. Our Torah speaks about donkeys and oxen and pits and wool and linen, all the parameters of our world. So if you take this Torah and give it to any other world, it will be unintelligible. It won't make any sense. What are we talking about here? What are these things? So if there's life without Torah, that's not life. That makes no sense. If there's life on another planet with our Torah, that makes no sense. It won't work for them. And God said there's no other Torah but ours. There will never be another Torah than ours. There is no other Torah than ours. So it can't be that another planet has a different Torah designed for that world. So therefore, because for there to be life, there has to be Torah. Our Torah won't work, and there's no other Torah. The Rebbe said there can't be any other intelligent life in outer space. And that concept moved me so much, because it's such a way for us, for me at least, I feel like, to look at my own life and like, what's life without Torah? What is it? It's not life. So I wanted to talk about Torah. I mean, obviously we've been talking about Torah, but to focus more on what is Torah? How do you understand it? What's its point? What would you tell someone? What would you tell someone if they were saying to you, what's this Torah? Why this Torah? Why are you following these rules? What's Torah? What would you say?
So since there's a lot of people down here in Florida that are not religious, I definitely have the opportunity all the time. So what I tell them is, I kind of say in a way where like, not like you should do it. I'm like, it's amazing that like I have the book of life. I have like instructions on how to have a good life. Everything is like set up for me. I don't have to like really think about it. I have to just learn it. And it just guides me. It's like, I say like God made me, knows exactly what I need. It's kind of like making a robot. You know exactly what buttons to push and what batteries it needs to get it moving. So if you want it to work properly and you want, and we want to be efficient in this world, then this is what you got to follow. And they're like, yeah, most people will say like, I like that. I like that outlook. That makes sense. Wow. So happy for you that you have that. Like some guy told me that the other day at like the car dealership. But that's really it. And that's so true. I really, really believe that because I naturally have a rebellious personality. And if you tell me to do something, I'm gonna do the opposite on purpose. But like I feel like the Torah is very like it's just a guide. Like I feel like we're all animalistic. And if we don't have the guidelines, we're just gonna, feed into our animal soul or whatever you call it.
It's a manufacturer's manual.
It's a
Yep.
blueprint.
Yeah, yeah. It's the manual. It's the instructions. Exactly what you're saying, Shira. It's such a great answer. It's so true. Everything that's complicated needs an instruction manual. There's nothing more complicated than life. So there's nothing more valuable than life, and there's nothing more complicated than life. So if you have an instruction manual for your computer and your car and your for sure, Torah is the instruction manual for life. That's a beautiful answer, and I'm not surprised that it
And
resonates.
I also tell people that like I don't even know how people go an entire week and not have like a Sabbath. Like I've been once I light my candles the whole week of like I tell them how like, we sit at the table together. There's no going to the mall. There's no kids, teenagers asking you for your credit card. There's no nothing. And my trainer actually, she's from Brazil. Knows nothing about knows nothing about Judaism, nothing. She told me 2 weeks ago she liked that idea and she said she didn't talk to anyone in her family, on her phone, none of her friends for the whole like Sabbath. She said she didn't turn any lights on and she said she loved it. And I'm like, you don't have to do that.
Did you tell her to light the Shabbos candles?
No, she's not Jewish.
She's not Jewish. I was gonna say, I mean,
No,
she's Jewish. Oh, she's not Jewish. Oh,
no, she just loved the whole idea of
whole
it.
concept.
So she told me like on Monday that she's like didn't do all these things and she said it was such a nice day.
So
And
now,
I'm like,
now tell her about the Noahide laws.
I'm gonna send her to you for that.
Well, Mrs. Turin, today in class, I was in class today, and apparently I'm in the class with this girl who's Chinese. She's literally like from China 5 years ago. And she said that they all like it's this huge like thing, the respect they have for Orthodox Jews and the Sabbath, and how they like try and emulate that to their own level of like putting their phones away, and how that's like the ultimate. And she went on and on about how like she didn't know if it was appropriate to tell me, but in East China they really like try to do the Sabbath, and they like think really highly of it. And
It's
didn't
so
know that.
interesting because I could not envision if I was not Jewish, if God did not command us on the Shabbos, I could never simulate it. I mean, it's like so many things that I do from a religious perspective, and therefore we have a lot of self-discipline because God says, like Shira said, this is the instruction manual, and we know it works, and we know it's our manual, and we know He wants whatever. We just do it. If on a Wednesday I was told this is really great for your mental health to not use your phone for 25 hours, like I value my mental health, but like I sort of need my phone more, you know. Like I can't control what I eat. How do we control between milk and meat or so many things in our life? I like it's like very amazing to me for someone to have that discipline if it's not coming from a God soul. Like I think the reason we can keep Shabbos is because it's coming from God. He's empowering us to do it, and our soul resonates with it. But if it wasn't coming from God, if it was some man-made idea and it wasn't resonating in my soul, it was a man-made idea, I don't see how I would ever have the inner discipline to do it. I think that's pretty interesting that they I guess they're very disciplined people and they see the benefit. Of course, but there's so many things so beneficial. Like, going back to Shira's concept of the instruction manual. When we follow it Hashem's way, we're doing it because He says, but it so works for us. Like Shabbos, like Shira's example of Shabbos is a perfect example. Will we ever choose to stop for 25 hours? How can we afford to stop? We have so many things to do. I mean, doesn't Shira have to do laundry 3 times a day and deal with her bills and her appointments and her shopping and her errands we have so much to do. How could you take 25 hours out of your life? So we're doing it only because He says to, but because we do it only because He says so, it's so good for us. It's so therapeutic. It's like it's funny. You're saying about the Chinese, and she was saying about her Brazilian trainer. So actually, a Noahide that I'm very close to. So she's from America. She's from Indiana, and the first time she was by my house, or several times actually, she was by my house for a Shabbos meal as an up and coming Noahide. And she said, she didn't tell me then, but she told me later that what, I don't know if you want to say the word converted her, because that's not really the right word. What inspired her to really become an absolute Noahide was seeing our Shabbos table. Now, she's not Jewish. She has no obligations for Shabbos. But she said she never in her life experienced the beauty of family. I don't want you guys to think my family looks any more beautiful than anyone else's family. It doesn't. Trust me. All the stuff we know happens. But even seeing that, because she was at our house many times, she still saw past that and through that to the beauty of family. The beauty of, like she was saying, a Shabbos meal where there's nothing going around but your whole family sitting around a table and eating and talking and communicating and being with each other. And growing up as she grew up in just normal America, which means everyone's on their phone or on the TV screen, or I mean, whoever eats together anyway. Like, it was like, wow, she said, I want this life. If this is what it means to be a Noahide, though it doesn't because this is Jewish, but still, like in her head, it became one, obviously. If this is what it means to be a Noahide, I want it because this is the best life. I think of children. If I wasn't religious, I wouldn't have the number I have today. Not by a very, very, very long stretch. But who's giving a gift to who? Am I giving a gift to God? Is God giving a gift to me? And in so many things. Modest dress, would I have a sense? Would I be so sensitive and refined to understand to dress modestly? Some people are, but I don't think I would be one of those people. But look how it gives me a sense of self-worth and dignity and respect. I don't know. It's just like, like Shira said, this is the manual for the best life for us. God's saying, this, I made you. I know exactly how you work. And this is your best life. It really is. Anyone else? What other ideas are there? What Shira said is so true, and it so resonates. Any other visions on how you would explain, how you think of it, how you understand it, how you would explain what's Torah? Why do you do Torah? What's Torah?
I know, I think Shira pretty much summed it up, but I think
that's the problem. Someone giving a great answer. Then everyone's like, what is there left to say? Come on.
There's nothing left to say. No, but when you see people who are atheists or just don't believe, I feel like it's Hefker. Like, I don't know, like there's no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no I don't know, there's no balance, there's no, I don't know, anything can't just go. It can't, because it just doesn't work that way.
Stability, no roots.
Right, no stability. There's just, it can't, life can't work. I mean, it does, but it doesn't.
But it doesn't.
But it doesn't. Right. It does until it doesn't.
Yeah. When there's no meaning to it all, then I feel like these people who don't believe in God or have any godliness, they try to find meaning in all these fleeting things, causes or this or that. And without godliness, there's just nothing outside of yourself, which I feel sorry for them because it's like the only thing they have is themselves and no direction, no meaning to anything. It's kind of sad.
And of course, I don't think anyone's a real atheist. Not any Jew and not any non-Jew. Now it says in Torah, it says very strongly in many places that every human being senses God. Maybe they've been culturally trained to deny that sense. Maybe they don't have a word that resonates in their modern ears that's okay to call that sense. But every human being has an awareness of God. Every Jew has an awareness of God. But when we live without the Torah, without, like Shira said, the instruction manual, the guide for life, yeah, life would be very scary. Very, very slippery slope. Very scary. If I thought I was responsible for my life, oh my gosh, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. If I think we run a scary, scary place.
I do tell people that also. I say I have no idea how people get through like their life without knowing that there's an upper power, because I'd want to control everything and nothing would ever go my way. And I'd be so aggravated all the time. And I would tell them my father's a pharmacist and the biggest drug he prescribes is antidepressants, anti-anxiety, besides for birth control. And it's because we just want to take control of the world. And it's scary not knowing that there's someone higher that could make things work out for you. And yeah, that's definitely another line that I use that people like.
It's so true. I mean, today, if I wasn't a believer, the world would be such a terrifying place. Especially for a Jew. And Baruch Hashem, I am a believer, so I know it's all in God's hands. And I remember once This was like during COVID, and I don't know if it was, I don't remember if it was the thick of COVID or it was like sort of in the maybe end of COVID when people were anti-vaccine, that time. I don't remember exactly when. And someone posted on a WhatsApp group, and I usually don't respond to these things. But someone posted something like, I don't remember what, something like, I don't remember what it was. I'm like, the world's gonna be gone in like, I don't know what it was, 3 months, a month. Everybody's gonna die. Whatever it was, some such rallying call. And I was like, should I respond or not? Because I don't want to embarrass whoever posted it. And I was like, no, because there's a concept that if you're in a room and someone's saying something and you don't say no, that means you're saying yes. You have to do what's called make a mecha, a protest. So I tried to say very nicely because obviously I didn't want to offend the person that posted it. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I was like, I don't know what I said, but something like that's not our approach. We know Mashiach's coming. We know this world is going to last forever. The Jewish people are eternal. We don't walk around scared that the world's going to come to an end and all life or whatever, whatever they were talking about. But I understand why people are saying these things, of course. But when you have Torah, when you have the boundaries, I think that's sort of what Miriam meant. We have the boundaries of Torah. You have the stability of Torah, the strength of Torah. Breathe. It's God's world. Everything's gonna be okay in Eretz Yisrael. It's God's world. Everything's okay for the Jewish people. It's God's world. Trust and know you can live and rejoice. It's God's world. It's not our world. We're not running the show. Yeah, that would be terrifying, but we're not. It's His world. The world is a safe place. So I think you're right, Miriam. I think that's a huge additional piece, that a line that she also uses. A huge additional piece, because it's so true. It's so true. There's just, how would we all be sane? Or as she was saying, no, that we'd be on antidepressants. So, because, yeah. It's so late. At the same time, this is just like pre-Shavuos thoughts. I mean, of course, I have a lot planned that we're not going to say, but I'm just going to quickly throw out a few more ideas, only because when we come into Shavuos, we're getting the Torah, we're celebrating the Torah. Every year, I would always say to my children, because we'd have this big milchik, as I call it, party, after, come home from shul, and I'm like, why are we having this party? Because we just got the best gift. We got the Torah, and that's what we're supposed to feel the whole Shavuos. There's no Yetzer Hara preventing us from following Torah on Shavuos. We got the Torah. Let's celebrate. Have a cheesecake. So, just a few other ideas I'm going to say very quickly, because I know it's late, and if anyone has to go, that's fine, but just one or two more ideas. But I love what Shira said, I love what Miriam said. Another idea is just that Torah is the personal expression of the will and wisdom of Hashem. It's His diary. He's sharing with us His thoughts, His desires. He's giving us literally Himself. When He gives us the Torah, He gives us Himself. And the more we learn the Torah, the more we're exposed to Him, the more we become one with Him. It's the deepest soul connection possible. It's the only thing actually that feeds our soul. You can do mitzvahs all day long, but you're not feeding your soul one drop. The only thing that feeds our soul is Torah. It's the only way we are truly united with God. To a certain degree, we're united when we do mitzvahs, but real, absolute unity only happens when we learn Torah. So when we're learning Torah with all that inspiration and unity and fusion with God, then we have the energy to go out and do lots of mitzvahs and change the world and refine it and bring Mashiach. But it all comes from that oneness we achieve through Torah. Something else, sort of similar but slightly different, that I was learning this morning that so inspired me, and has inspired me many times in the past when I learned this concept. They're saying Torah is Hashem's wisdom. It's the closest thing to Him. So when we learn Torah, imagine learning Torah lishma. Lishma meaning just for the sake of Torah. Not I'm learning Torah to know what to do. Nah. Not I'm learning Torah to do a mitzvah. I'm learning Torah to get reward. I'm learning Torah for the sake of Torah. And the mashal, the parable for this, is if a child, when I took Beryl out of the hospital, we were in the hospital a few days with his surgery, and my son Kalman, who's very close to Beryl, he drove. It probably was 2 hours each way to pick us up, bring us home. So we're coming down, and Beryl's in a wheelchair. You know how it is when you leave a hospital. He's in a wheelchair. There's like a nurse and 2 aides all over him and me. And we come down to the first floor, and my son Colin was just walking in like to meet us. And when Beryl saw Kalman, literally he jumped out of the wheelchair and he ran to Kalman and got picked up by him and ran into his arms. And his mother's obviously chopped liver on the side, whatever. He ran to Kalman. It was such a precious moment. Like all the nurses and aides were like, ah. Then they came over with the wheelchair and back in the wheelchair. That's us in Torah. That's us in Hashem. Like a child just runs. You haven't seen your parent. You run to your parent. You just want to give them a hug. You want to give them a kiss. Why? It's your parent. It's your father. It's your mother. You love him. You love her. You want to be with him. Yes, there's no why. You're not thinking why. You just see your parent and you run. And that's us in Torah. You're not running to your parent to get the credit card, to put a check that you did your duty. You're running because you just love your parent. You want to be with them. You want to give them a hug. That's us and Hashem through Torah. That a Jew, when he has a free moment, he just wants to run and give Hashem a hug. He just wants to learn Torah because that's how we give Hashem a hug. Not even, Ashura says correct. It's 100% our instruction manual. What Miriam says is correct. It's 100% our anchor, our support, our stability, and it's much, much more. But not for any of that, not the instruction manual, not to know what to do, not to fulfill my obligation, not for reward, not for blessing, not for payback. I just want to learn Torah out of love, out of a desire to give Hashem a hug. It's like the Gemara says that Hillel obligated the poor and Rebbe Elazar ben Harsum obligated the rich. Meaning if a person says, I can't, I'd love to learn Torah, but I can't, I'm too poor all day, I'm just running around trying to scrounge for a piece of bread for my family, I can't learn Torah. Well, look at Hillel. He was probably poor. I'd love to learn Torah, but I have so many businesses, I have so many things, and the community relies on me, and my charity supports half of the city, and I don't have time to learn. I'd love to learn. Really? You're richer than Rebbe Elazar ben Harsum? He had time to learn Torah. That's what it says in the Gemara. So the Rebbe asks a very basic question that you wouldn't think of, but it's so obvious. The Rebbe says, what's going on? If a poor person is obligated to learn, and a rich person is obligated to learn, who cares about Hillel and Rebbe Elazar ben Harsum? You have to learn Torah. You have to learn Torah. I don't have to give you examples. You have to learn Torah. And if you don't have to learn Torah because you're so poor, because you're so rich, who cares if Hillel and Rebbe Elazar ben Harsum did it? Like, so what? What does that have to do with anything? So what's the point the Gemara is saying? The Gemara is saying, maybe you're right. Maybe according to the letter of the law, you're too bogged down with your poverty to learn. You're too bogged down with your wealth to learn. Maybe according to the letter of the law, you have a pass. But look at Hillel, look at Elizabeth Harsum. They also were too bogged down to learn. But they love Hashem so much, they learned anyway. Because if you love Hashem so much, even if you don't have to, you're going to learn anyway. And that's the example we're gaining. Okay, you don't have to. What does learning Torah have to do with have to? You love Hashem so much, you want to give him a hug, you want to learn anyway. And the final idea, we'll stop at this point, is exactly what Miriam said before, and we don't really have time to talk about it, which is that Torah is the blueprint. It's God's blueprint for the world, and it's a blueprint for our life, and we're not going to say any more, and we should have a wonderful Shavuos. Kabbalah Torah b'simcha b'pnimius. We should receive the Torah with joy and with inwardness. Dina? I cannot hear you. You're muted.
Sorry. Super quick. I remember last year something about how the minhag of like milchig and then leishig, and I remember something about like taking a walk in between or something. Do you remember?
I don't know what I told you. I don't know about the walk, but I know in Chabad, we are very careful that every Yontif meal has to be fleishik. Because according to halacha, celebrating a Simchas Yontif has to be with meat and wine, so it has to be fleishiks. But of course on Shavuos, we're supposed to have milchiks. So what we do is we like make kiddush and have obviously cake and lots of milchiks, whatever you want. And then we wait an hour. And then we have a meat meal afterwards. Usually a light meat meal afterwards because people are usually sort of full. But I've had heavy meat meals afterwards because if you space it far enough in between, it's a long day. You know, people will, believe it or not, eat a lot of good fleishik food after having eaten a lot of good milchik food if there's enough of a pause in between. But yeah, that's what we do. And sometimes we do it both days because in Chabad, we sort of unofficially hold it's good to have the dairy both days. So we sort of have the dairy and then wait for an hour and then have the meat meal.